Welcome to Black History Decoded, where I give insight into Black or African history that has been misrepresented over the centuries. What if I were to tell you that the Hathor Temple is actually the Queen of Sheba Temple? Yes, I'm going to explain, just be patient. These people have multiple names or titles, you have to recognize that. Now, in my video, The Lie That Is Cleopatra VII, I explained that the temple was to commemorate the ascension of Isis, aka Hathor, and her son Horus, aka Amenhotep IV. After I did that video, I asked this question of Google. But I didn't ask before because I already knew the story. I just wanted to investigate further because the similarities between Hathor and Isis bothered me. So this is what I asked. What is the Hathor Temple known for? And it says it was built during the Ptolemaic era. Now I proved that that is not the case. The Ptolemies had nothing to do with that temple. That's a lie. So that alone, you should ask yourself, well, what did the Ptolemies really do? And it should put into question their history and also the history of Cleopatra VII. Because apparently, Hathor existed thousands upon thousands of years before their timeline. It's ridiculous, right? Why would you resurrect a temple of a woman that you have no connection to whatsoever, right? And there's no reference to the Ptolemies in that temple or on the walls. They claim that Cleopatra and Caesarion are on the walls, but I showed you that that's not the case. It's not the case at all. Supposedly, Cleopatra and Caesarion are there and they're being greeted by dead gods who are actual people, who have been dead for thousands of years before their time. It just doesn't make any sense, right? So, what is the Hathor Temple known for? It was built during the Ptolemaic era, which is not the case, and is dedicated to the goddess Hathor and her son Horus. Now, this is the problem that I had, because I know that Isis is actually the mother of Horus. So, are Hathor and Isis the same? That's what it's saying here. The temple is well known for its beautiful reliefs and sculptures depicting various gods and goddesses. The temple was built to commemorate the birth of Horus, the god of kingship born from Hathor's womb in Dendera. So I was right. Now, in my video, I said that Hathor and Isis are actually the same person, and I'm going to explain further. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole story about Queen of Sheba and King Solomon, but what I want to get through to you is that they messed around, and Queen of Sheba went back to her land, and she had a child. But what you have to understand is that she had a child out of wedlock. That is a no-no. So she could do one of two things: hide the pregnancy from her people and then pretend she found the child outside the palace, or she could say it was from divine intervention. For example, Osiris impregnated her, a virgin birth, propaganda. Notice that both those stories are in ancient Egyptian history. So let's say she went the virgin birth route. That would make Queen of Sheba Isis. And we know Queen of Sheba was a very smart and powerful woman. And we know Isis had a virgin birth story, and Horus, she had Horus, right? So Queen of Sheba has to go back to Amenhotep III, aka King Solomon, aka Ra, because Amenhotep III is obviously King Solomon outside the Bible. So she has to go back to him and get him to marry her and claim the kid. Now, like I said before, this depiction on the Hathor Temple is showing their ascension into the royal house of Amenhotep III, aka King Solomon. Remember, Amenhotep III does not marry from inside his family. He marries an outsider that he loves and is powerful in her own right. Isis becomes his wife, Queen Tai, and their child is named Amenhotep IV, aka Horus. So Queen Tai is Hathor, aka Isis, making Hathor the mother of Horus. Now, according to the mythology, he does not give in right away. But in the mythology, he's Ra. They don't say Amenhotep III, he's Ra. But they mention that Amenhotep III is known as the dazzling sun disk. He was into the sun as well. And then his son took over, but things didn't go well for him. Because He probably thought to himself when she presented him to him. He probably thought that, like, to himself that, yeah, you're a very beautiful woman. I like you a lot, but I haven't seen you in a while, and I don't know if this child is mine. So again, going back to the mythology, Isis, who is Queen of Sheba, plays a trick on him in order to force him to acquiesce.
Isis and the name of the sun god. The Egyptians were firm believers in magic. The goddess Isis was considered to be especially potent in the magical arts, and one of her greatest coups came when she persuaded Re to divulge his secret name so that she held power over him. Isis was a clever woman, explained one story. More intelligent than countless gods, she was ignorant of nothing in heaven or on earth. She wanted to place herself and her son Horus at the head of the pantheon of gods, and the only way to do this was to discover Re's secret name. One day Isis came upon Re when he was asleep, snoring loudly. From the corner of his open mouth hung a long dribble of saliva, which gathered weight and fell to the ground. Isis pounced. Scooping up the spittle, she mixed it with clay in the form of a poisonous snake. Then she breathed magic into the snake to make it come alive. Isis had noted Re's movements and knew that every so often he would leave his palace to go for a walk. Each time on his route, he passed a crossroads. Isis left her snake there and awaited further developments. Re emerged for his excursion, and as Isis had planned, the snake bit him. Re saw nothing, but he felt the poison coursing through him. In pain, he called to the 9 gods of the Ennead for help. Re had a fever and was sweating and shivering, but the other gods were helpless. They could do no more than mourn the impending loss of the sun. Isis then made a dramatic entrance. She could cure him, she said, but only if he would tell her his name. Re refused. She offered again and again, but still he declined. Eventually, his agony became so extreme that he could bear it no longer, and he agreed to give Isis the secret on condition that she should tell it to no one other than her son, Horus. Isis accepted these terms, and speaking aloud the god's true name, she removed the poison. The sun god was cured at once, and Isis and Horus attained the power that they had sought.
So Ra can get sick and die? Yes, because he was an actual person. He was Amenhotep III, the dazzling sun disk, King Solomon, aka Sun Man, or Son of Man. The so-called Egyptian gods are not supernatural beings that lived amongst the humans. They are actual people. So again, this depiction right here is showing their ascension into the royal family. That's what this represents, and has nothing to do with Cleopatra and her son Caesarion. So what I'm saying is that this is one timeline. They existed in the same time period. They are saying that Cleopatra and her son Caesarion are being greeted by a whole bunch of dead gods that supposedly existed thousands of years before their time. That's absolutely ridiculous. But this is what they want you to believe. If you don't have any common sense in your head, you're going to fall for that nonsense. Now, have you ever asked yourself why they haven't identified King David and King Solomon outside the Bible? These are supposed to be very important figures in history, but yet somehow, outside the Bible, they are not mentioned, but they are. The so-called Holy Land of the Bible is ancient Kemet, not Israel. Think about it. Outside the Bible, what do we talk about in various history books? Ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet, or ancient Israel? Ancient Kemet, of course. Menes or Namur united the two lands, similar to the King David story, right? Amenhotep III had an impressive reign, just like King Solomon. Sol, O man, or son of man. Amenhotep III was also known as a dazzling sun disk, aka Ra, aka King Solomon. As always, do your own research and you will come to the conclusion that the history that we're told is distorted. If a people have control of the history of a people that they don't like, are they going to represent them properly? Most likely not, right? Like, share, and subscribe. Make a comment. Thanks.